Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Wounded Healer, where we make the human experience more enjoyable. I'm your host, Keith, and I'll have a little confession. I did not get 2 episodes up and going this week. Saturday was the last day of the week. I was supposed to get this episode recorded and posted, and I did not. I failed myself in my commitment to 2 shows a week, but I have a good reason. Why I believe it's a good reason. Yesterday, the Buffalo Bills, which I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, go Bills, played late game. They played the Dolphins. It was a divisional rivalry game, and it was important to the Bills. And I wanted to go watch the game with other Bills fans. I wanted to be a part of that atmosphere and that environment. But I also wanted to come home right after work and go to work and go to work on putting this together, because it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to record these. I'm not really good at it. I'm not comfortable yet. This is all still new to me, so it takes a little bit of time, and I want to allow myself that time to deliver a proper good show. And so I'm thinking about all this, and I'm going back and forth about it, and then I decide to go to dinner and watch the game. I do not regret it. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I did it. That kind of eased a little bit of that internal struggle. But on the way home, I was back at odds with myself again. And it was, well, okay, you went and watched the game. Now you got to go home and you got to go to work. You got to put this thing together. You got to get it out there. And then here I am again, back and forth. Well, it's going to be late. Well, it's almost tomorrow anyways. Well, it's going to take long. I'm just excuse after excuse. And I'm having this conversation as I'm driving down the road. Thankfully, it's dark and no one can see inside the truck because I'm talking to myself, which I seem to do that a lot. But I don't think it's a bad thing. So it's okay. I'm going back and forth with myself about what I'm going to do. So, I just say, listen, you got to hold yourself accountable. You've committed to this. You got to do it. You got to put forth the effort. So I get home, straight through the door, sat down in front of the computer, and I realize now that it's late, really late, and there's no way that I can record and get anything going. So I start going through my notes and putting my notes together. I am working on this mind mapping to help structure my content and help my delivery. And this really works. It was a great idea. It's already made me better. It's already made me feel more comfortable. So I can't wait to continue to get better at that. And so I put all that together and I decide, shut it down. We're going to bed. Tomorrow's a new day. And here we are. I get up my normal time around 5 a.m. and I say, all right, it's time to go to work. We're going to do this. We got to put it out, and it better be damn good. And here I am. Now, that story, yesterday's events, are a perfect example of what this show is about today, and that is cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is a psychological phenomenon. So this is my second psychological phenomenon that I've talked about. Now, you may challenge me and say, oh, that's not a big deal. I know someone that can talk about a psychological phenomenon. Yeah, but do you know someone that can talk about 2 psychological phenomenons? I challenge that, and I beg to differ. Not bragging or anything. I just think it's pretty cool. I'm proud of myself. And so cognitive dissonance, that is when a person participates in an action that goes against their ideas, beliefs, or values. Like me yesterday. I wanted to come home. I wanted to record. I enjoyed it. I look forward to it. I'm loving it. It is something that has been good for me, and I'm loving. Now I don't know how to. I'm loving the attention that I'm getting from it, but it's a very positive attention. It's not a egotistical type thing. It's a like. It's actually doing what I wanted it to do. It's resonating with people. It's hitting people. People are coming back to me and they're saying, "Oh, this," or "Oh, I didn't know this or that." And man, that shit is motivating. It is motivating for me to continue to just get after it. It's motivating to where it's 1:00 in the morning. I just drove an hour and a half to get home, but I'm sitting down in front of my computer to put shit together. That's what it is. That's what it's doing. It's not me boasting and patting myself on the back and none of that. It's like, yes, I owe it to those folks. And no matter what, I have to put forth the effort. And that's what yesterday was about. And it was kind of cool to experience that and go through it. And like right now, I'm giving myself time to think about it. And I was like, yeah, when I was thinking about putting this topic, I went, in the Keith files, and I said, man, I can pull out a few examples in my life of cognitive dissonance where, it kind of ruined situations or interactions or relationships. And, I could go that way. There's a lot of good examples in there also. Life is full of good and bad. I think it's a balance. It's a fine line. But I said, this is great. Yesterday was a great, good, clean example that people will understand. And that's what I wanted to, that's the example that I wanted to bring or to put out there. Because at the end of the day, I want this thing to be relatable. I want it to be able to just connect with anyone, anybody, anywhere. So, all right, let me get back on track. All right, cognitive dissonance, it's basically an internal psychological struggle with inconsistencies. So, in 1957, Leon Festner, I don't know how you pronounce his last name, was a Stanford professor, and he coined the theory cognitive dissonance. And it was after him and 2 or 3 of his colleagues sat up with this religious cult all night waiting on the world to end. And so this religious group believed that their God was going to flood the world and kill everybody that specific day at that time. So he wanted to go out there and hang out with these people to see what was really going on. And in the morning, when they all were still there, no one disappeared, no one died, there was no water anywhere, him and his colleagues wanted to interview as many of the members as they possibly could to see where they were at or how it affected them. And what they found out is that a majority of the members kind of justified what had happened. So they kind of changed their minds. So they basically said that, well, the world did not end or the world did not flood because we stayed up all night praying and God repented at the last minute. And so, everything thanks to them was okay. And that's kind of where, they came up with this cognitive dissonance where, you will do things to ease that internal conflict, that mental stress. No different than me yesterday, justifying why I should go watch the Bills game and then feeling a way that I felt and then wanting to get home and also record. I was feeling that same mental stress, that same internal conflict that the religious folks was feeling, So I changed the way I thought about situations as they did. Just to get off track again, but this makes me think, like back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, there was some wild shit going on out there at Stanford. I mean, you got Leon staying up all night waiting on the world to end with these groups of people, challenging their beliefs. What the Stanley, the Milgram, where he was having people shock someone to death to see if they would actually go through with it. You had that, I think it was the Philip Zimbardo, that professor who was putting people in fake prisons out there to see how long they could last, and watching them like mentally break down. That actually messed some people up for a long time. That was a hell of a time, and back then there was so much other stuff going on. And in my opinion, I believe that there's still some stuff going on now, but I'm sure there is. And then, now in modern times, we have some equally great minds like Robert Spolowski out there, biology professor, he's got many books, lectures. That guy's amazing. And Andrew Huberman, who is someone that I idolize. I can only hope that the content that I deliver and the idea that I have for this podcast can come just a little bit close to what he's doing. And I'll have all that information, in the notes. But these are some great people. That's a hell of a lineup. And hell, that would be the boy band I'd put together. Can you imagine the album them jokers could come up with? Some interesting shit. But let me stop with my man crushes and get back on track. So according to this theory, when two actions or ideas are just, psychologically or not psychologically consistent with each other, people will do anything in their power to change them until they do become consistent. Why? Again, to reduce that mental stress. And, we do that because we just don't want to experience the discomfort or that mental stress. We don't want to experience maybe the social ridicule, the judgment, that social ridicule that you'll get, the uncomfortableness that comes with it. So we'll make decisions, we'll change beliefs, we'll change values to ease that. And one example, and I'm not going to go too much into this because it's a whole different show, but let's say you're in a relationship and, maybe, and again, it's just my opinion. I'm not diagnosing anybody. I can't diagnose anybody legally, but I can have my thoughts, right? But let's say you're in a relationship and this person that you're in a relationship with may or may not have some narcissistic attributes, right? Well, this cognitive dissonance is something that you see with a lot of narcissists because, if you take, for example, me in the Buffalo Bills game last night, if I'd already committed to doing something else with my partner, but I choose to go to the game instead, when you come home, I'm going to justify the hell out of why I was there. And I'm going to make it seem like I had to be there or I would be judged. I would be shunned from that group. And, I would be the victim. I would be the one hurt. And when your partner hears this, they, in return, start to justify your actions. So they will tell themselves, I don't want him to lose his buddies. I don't want him to not watch the Bills game. He likes the Bills, and, we'll just do something tomorrow. And that's what the person is saying. It's like, well, I'll make it up to you. Tomorrow, we're going to do something, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So then your partner's like, okay, yeah, I'm good with that. But you're just left with that just something. And that's cognitive dissonance on both ends. That's two people justifying their actions, their beliefs, their values, and that's two people changing it to ease the mental stress. And that is something that narcissists will do. And we're going to leave it at that. If you have experienced that, or if you can think back of a situation where that sounds a little bit too familiar, hey, reach out to me. We'll talk a little bit. But that's a serious thing, and it's something that folks with those tendencies will do. And if you're experiencing it more than once, well, more than likely you're dealing with a narcissistic person and cognitive dissonance. But excuse me. Again, that's a whole nother show, whole nother day. Now, although Festinger may have coined that theory, there are examples that are as old as time here. There's examples that go back 2,000 years of cognitive dissonance, and that is, in the writings of Aesop. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Aesop was a slave who lived about 2,000 years ago in ancient Greece, and he wrote these fable tales with truthful insight and meaning. They were powerful writings. And one of the stories was The Fox and the Grapes. And basically what it is the fox comes across this grapevine, and it is just loaded with beautifully plump, delicious, ripe grapes. And he's wanting it. He can taste them. I mean, he wants them bad. However, regardless of how hard he tries, how high he jumps, how far he reaches, he's unable to get these grapes. And he just kind of sits down and looks up at him, and he says, well, why am I even doing this? Why am I even trying? Those are sour grapes. They're not worth it. And he just walks away scornfully. Now, the term sour grapes actually derived from that story that we use now to describe undesirable things. So it's kind of neat. But yeah, so he tells himself, these things are sour. They're not worth my time. Boom, I'm walking away. So rather than admit that he's failed to reach the grapes, he rationalizes that they're not that desirable and goes on about his business. And it shows that, you can't hold incompatible ideas simultaneously. It's frustrating. And you can, again, apply that to where we're at right now. I'm sure there's some examples, if you think back in your life, where, you see something and you're like, man, that'd be nice. I wish I could have that, or I want that, or something I want to do. But you just can't figure out how to get there. So then you tell yourself it's not worth it. You can't do it. You didn't really want to do it. There's something better you'd want to do. And you walk away, and you just walk away pissed off. No different than the fox. I think it can go the other way also. You can, and this is going to get into some confirmation bias because it is kind of connected to cognitive dissonance, and I'll keep it short too, but you can, on the other end, someone can have a belief that things are one way, but they're physically seeing things are not that way. But they continue to tell themselves, no, they're the way that I'm thinking, even though they see something opposite of what they're thinking. And it really causes like a division or it causes, I guess, that internal psychological inconsistency. It's like, I still want to believe this, but I'm seeing this. But if I believe that, then this probably could happen. So I just do this to do this. It goes into the whole life preservation thing, survival thing, you know, that primal desire that we have. So it's a lot. I mean, this has been, you know, researched and studied more than most, and it's a big part of our existence. And with modern technology, which I think is awesome when it's used for good, the biomechanics of cognitive dissonance can actually be shown or visible through like MRI, through imaging. And there's evidence now that the greater the psychological conflict, the more activity we can see in the anterior cingulate cortex, which is also the ACC. So it sits right behind your main frontal lobe. So if you had it's right where your forehead is. It's literally a like collar shaped, kind of like a C-shaped, right behind your frontal lobe. So that's right in there. Kind of aligns the part of the brain that holds things together, that's responsible for both sides. The corpus callosum, it's responsible for both sides of the brain's communicating. So this ACC sits on either side of that. So now we know there's activity there when we're experiencing this. That is kind of cool. That is kind of neat. That is something that Fessner didn't have that we have now. That's something that Aesop definitely didn't have that we have. And it's kind of neat. So, and that where we experience that activity during this, you know, it's in the area where it's responsible for those higher functions. So the attention, the attention allocation, where our attention is, and it's reward, anticipation, decision making, ethics, morally, just like impulse control and emotions. So you can kind of understand why we may experience this internal stress, because of the area that's affected by it. So what are some other neat? Well, one thing that we do as humans to ease this cognitive dissonance, we will choose what we watch, view, read to fit our current state of mood or belief or mind. You know, so in other words, like we select attitude consistent information and avoid attitude changing information. And this can be, you know, applied to all like media, news, music, books, any messaging channel. And, you know, it's the idea that choosing something that is in opposition to how you feel or believe in will increase cognitive dissonance. So you, again, do all things necessary to avoid that stress. So you will watch things that are in line with how you're feeling, not to change that. That could be unhealthy. That could continue leading you down the road of no return. So if you think about that and you're in a bad mood, or you're just having a bad day, or you're in a bad place, and you come home and, you know, people like to say you're in your feelings, and you start watching something that aligns with that, well, you're going to stay there. So here we go. Now that we know this, and you're in your feelings, or you're having one of those days or weeks, months, whatever the hell it is, come home and turn something else on. Turn something else on that will challenge that. Turn something else on that will help you change your belief or attitude. Put on something funny. Put on something good. Put on some rockin' music. I don't know anything. It just help challenge it, help change it. And if you're in a damn good mood, if you're having a damn good week, a damn good month, then stay with it. But check yourself. Calibrate where you're at, at the end of the day or just throughout the day. Just kind of make mental notes. Hell, talk to yourself a little bit, Talk about why you're having a good day. Talk about why things are going good. Talk about what you're going to do to continue doing this, right? So that's kind of challenging it a little bit. Keeps you going, keeps you putting the work in, and it keep you in line. So, again, another good example, bad example of how cognitive dissonance can affect us every day. One of the neat experiments done, again, back in the day on children and primates, man, over the last 100 years, we have put it on some kids with these experiments. But, it was done with primates and like first graders or kindergartners, what have you. And they were given the option to choose 2 items that were attractive to them or valuable to them or desirable to them. So let's say that you have A and B and you choose A. Well, after you made your choice, the unchosen leftover item, item B, is now paired with a third. So something else is introduced, a third item, so we'll call that C. And now they were asked to pick from those what they would want. And statistics show, and through the research, that primates and toddlers and even adults will pick the new item. So the new item that's introduced, that will be chosen over the unchosen item from the first exercise. And that is because we've already associated that item as not being desirable. It wasn't desirable to item A. We chose A. We left over B. Now there's B and C. We take C over B. So we've made a choice, and we've made a decision in our mind that this is not desirable. And in order to not feel stressed about it, in order to align ourselves to be consistent, we're not taking B, we're going to take C. Because if we were to take B, it's going to cause a little internal psychological inconsistency, a little bit of stress. We don't want that. We're designed to not, our brains are evolved to not experience those things, the least amount of stress and activities possible. And if you think about that in real world scenarios out there in the wild, how you make choices, how we make choices. And if you, again, think back, some of the choices you've made, some of the things you bought, some of the friends you have, some of the people you like, you don't like, this is where it's coming from. So what can we do to kind of break through some of this cognitive dissonance? Well, it's, again, you can change that belief, change the existing belief. So, you don't have to justify why the world didn't flood. You can simply just say, well, maybe we were just making some shit up. And now that we've been proven wrong, we're going to change our belief and say, well, the world's not going to end this way, blah, blah, blah. You can add a new belief, which, you think back, and they did. It's, well, our new belief is that, well, because we prayed all night, that's why the world didn't flood. And we're going to go with that. You can reduce the importance of the belief. So it's, well, it's not that we really needed it to flood to end everything. Maybe we needed to flood our own thoughts, or we needed to eliminate our own something and start over A fresh start. Maybe that's what it meant, was just we need a fresh start. You get it? The idea of these things are, we're changing our thoughts. We're changing our behaviors. We're changing our attitudes. And that's how we can kind of break through some of this stress when we're experiencing this. And you can say no. You don't always have to have a lot going on. If you're committed to something and people are asking you to do things and you're told you can say no. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to do what you want to do. You're allowed to do nothing. You're allowed to do something. You can do whatever you want. But what I recommend is that you do it where you want to be. That alone will help eliminate a lot of that stress. Put yourself where you want to be. And I think yesterday was a good example of that. I put myself where I wanted to be, but then I came home and aligned myself with what I wanted to do. And also I was where I wanted to be. And I got my notes together. And I felt good when I went to bed. I slept, like I normally do. And I was up and I'm fired up and ready to do it. To do this and, take on my day. I hope we learned something today. If there's anything else you need from me, you got to reach out to me. You got to let me know. I'm getting a lot of feedback. I want you to know that I'm putting the work in. I'm reaching out. I'm talking to a bunch of people to help me with this thing. I'm asking for help, which is rare for me. This is so new for me. For years I didn't even know how to ask for help, and I am asking people for help. I am humbled by this experience, and I am so willing to just listen to any and all feedback and willing to try and do anything to help make this better. And something as simple as the suggestion of mind mapping. And right now I'm looking at my notes, and it looks like a first grader wrote a bunch of shit down, and really without my glasses I can't read it. But the idea of the mind mapping and that structure and has been great. You kind of just going clockwise with the information. I feel like this was a pretty smooth and upgraded version of what I've done so far. So thank you to everyone that's offered feedback, help, suggestions, everything. Thank you to a couple of the folks that have already reached out to me. I'm enjoying it, and I know you have been, and we're going to continue to get better together. Hope everyone has a great week. Hope everyone has a good Sunday, or a good Sunday and a great week, and we'll see you in the next one.